Where does the famous Pawn Stars store keep its mysteries? Is there really a strong connection between Rick Harrison and Chum Lee? Conversely, has tension been building? Fans have been speculating about the drama behind the scenes for years, but nobody was expecting the shop's lovable prankster, Chum Lee, to come clean at last. What is the reason behind his prolonged silence? Who or what is causing him to speak up at this moment? This discovery goes beyond a simple shop chat program. It has the potential to change your perception of the show's most beloved couple. Would you like to find out the truth? The rumors spread rapidly throughout social media platforms. Pawn Stars had dismissed Chum Lee. After hearing rumors that Austin Chumlee Russell had been fired from the hit History Channel show, fans went into a frenzy trying to figure out why. When his astute fans observed that he had removed older posts and altered his Instagram bio, rumors began to circulate. But Chum Lee never allowed rumors to spread. Using his trademark wit and his phone, he tackled the problem directly. And Rick Harrison is the best person to talk to about it. In order to document the entire transaction for his Instagram story, Chum Lee casually stepped into the gold and silver pawn store. "Rick, I've heard rumors that I was fired," Chum Lee started, his tone demure but direct. In his characteristic no-nonsense fashion, Rick responded, "You didn't get fired," without raising his eyes from the antique he was examining. It was obvious that Chum Lee would not stop there. "Is it your hope to dismiss me?" Rick maintained an expressionless demeanor. Even while he remained mute, his expression conveyed a great deal, as if he were quietly considering, "Would you like me to tell you the solution to that?" Chum Lee once again demonstrated his indispensable role in the Pawn Stars family when the notion was debunked and the exchange went viral among fans. The dynamics of the shop, however, were somewhat more complex off-camera. There has always been an unusual blend of patience and irritation in Rick and Chum Lee's relationship. For more than 15 years, the duo's wacky chemistry and playful banter have entertained audiences. However, when the cameras stop rolling, Rick is more comfortable keeping his distance. The grouchy Pawn Stars captain, Rick, has dropped hints on multiple occasions that Chum Lee's antics are better enjoyed in moderation. The success they've had as a team is undeniable, though. With 21 seasons of strange stuff, Pawn Stars has been a History Channel hit since show debuted in 2009. Deep dives into the past, along with lots of humor. The group continued to work tirelessly even after the main series concluded its 21st season in the middle of 2023. Pawn Stars Do America was a spin-off that sent Rick, Corey Harrison, and Chum Lee on a cross-country treasure hunt. Season 22 of the original series had already begun production by the time the spin-off began airing in early 2024. Following their return to Las Vegas, the trio went back to their old haunt, the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop, where Chum Lee's eccentric sense of humor, famous for lines like "Will this be worth more if I lick it?" was waiting for them. This shop wasn't merely a job, it was a metamorphosis for Chum Lee. The connection between him and Corey began in elementary school, when an argument escalated into a physical altercation. Surprisingly, the person Corey's sister had accused of bullying was actually Chum Lee. Corey and Chum Lee became inseparable after the initial tension subsided, and their friendship ultimately landed Chum Lee a job at the pawn shop and a spot on the show. Chum Lee began working 2 jobs and interning at the shop when she was 21 years old. Daytime duties included overseeing Rick's Quiznos. He spent his nights gaining experience at the gold and silver mines. Before Pawn Stars debuted in 2009 and he became a full-time pawnbroker, Chum Lee did both jobs for 135 days straight, selling antiques and flipping sandwiches. Thanks to his zany antics, extensive pop cultural knowledge, and rare flashes of genius, Chum Lee became an instant favorite among fans. He may have begun his career as a comic relief, but he eventually found his calling and won over even Rick, who was always suspicious of him. There have been both good times and bad times in Chum Lee's life outside of the shop. In honor of his remarkable 100-pound weight loss, he tied the knot with Olivia in a small ceremony last year. It has been challenging for Chum Lee to work in Vegas and Olivia to study at USCB. Posting sincere remarks about missing his wife and the simple pleasures of life, like waking up next to her or sharing dinner, he frequently vents his emotions on social media. Despite the difficulties, Chum Lee maintains a positive outlook. "I find peace in knowing that we have each other for the rest of our lives," he wrote in a recent post. On Pawn Stars, Chum Lee did more than provide comic relief. He brought so much joy and silliness to the show. The man who revolutionized the pawn shop industry with his unique style. At first, the Harrisons kept him out of the spotlight, but they soon came to recognize his significance. There was a hidden weapon in Chum Lee. He wasn't only the foolish man who was making jokes. He had this uncanny knack for putting a grin on people's faces, even when he appeared to be completely lost. Chum Lee wasn't as stupid as he appeared. He was the one who made lighthearted jokes with Rick and Corey, but fans went, "Wait, what?" when he casually brought up his skill with pinball machines. He was a real surprise. People underestimated the intelligence hiding behind that silly smile. In the 5 years prior to the launch of Pawn Stars, Chum Lee had previously been an employee at the shop. However, his fame skyrocketed the moment the cameras started rolling. He has no qualms about provoking laughter and admiration from the audience by asking Rick and Corey offbeat and strange questions. Chum Lee wasn't there merely to make light of the antiques. Everything that came into the business had a story, and he wanted to know it. For him, it wasn't just about the business. He was really curious about its backstory. And we must not overlook the fact that he excelled at negotiating favorable terms for the store. He was quite perceptive. All the while, the shop's brains, Rick, were busy making sure things went off without a hitch. The pawn business and the show were both conceptualized by him. For things to fall into place, he labored like a lunatic. But what really stands out is the way he interacts with Chum Lee. During an interview, Chum Lee made a joke about how Rick would educate him, and he would act as if he weren't listening. Even though Chum Lee would sometimes vanish when they needed him most, Rick agreed and laughed as he said that they had a fantastic working connection. Their witty banter was the screen equivalent of enchantment, and viewers couldn't get enough. The audience felt like they were witnessing two long-lost friends being authentic, but the enchantment didn't always last when the show ended. As soon as the cameras stopped running, fans noticed that Rick and Chum Lee weren't exactly best friends. Of course, they cracked jokes while filming, but when they weren't, it was a whole different story. It left viewers wondering what was happening in the background. The strained relationship between them was shown in one episode. A deal involving a rare coin was being expertly handled by Chum Lee. He negotiated with the vendor expertly and had an expert look it over. Everything was proceeding as expected. Up until Rick swooped down and assumed control. Naturally, Chum Lee was dissatisfied. Rick was unmoved by his attempts to regain control. After much back and forth, the vendor went away without a contract, leaving Chum Lee fuming and secretly scolding Rick. Ever the businessman, Rick shot back, "You'll never understand this industry if you don't get it together." At that point, the strain was visible to the fans. This wasn't the first instance of Rick's mistrust about Chum Lee's ability to manage major agreements. On several occasions, Rick, Chum Lee, and the rest of the team would disagree on the best way to manage the shop. It was obvious that everyone had their own method of doing things. The elderly guy would doubt Rick's judgment and Chum Lee's intelligence. So, although it appeared on the show that they were all getting along great, the truth was a bit more nuanced. We can discuss Chum Lee's activities now. The pawn store wasn't a place for him to casually crack jokes. He debuted Chum Lee's Candies on the Boulevard in 2017. Sweets from his childhood, his own candy company, jerky, and even toothpicks were all in there. It was well received by critics and fans alike. Sharing Instagram updates about his candy enterprise, Chum Lee was living it up. "Chum Lee has a candy store," people exclaimed. However, he was actually killing it. However, Chum Lee's life was not without its share of hard times. In 2016, during an assault investigation, the police discovered drugs and unlicensed firearms at his residence, getting him into significant legal difficulties. There was friction between the two because Rick was unhappy about the negative news. Aside from the fact that Chum Lee's legal troubles further compounded their already troubled relationship, Rick was not happy about the negative attention it brought to the show. Nevertheless, Chum Lee continued. Perhaps that's the secret to his endearing personality. Unpredictability seemed to be his trademark. That being said, if there is a consensus, it is this. Chum Lee may have begun as the comic, but he certainly did not end out that way. Even though his prior convictions were reduced to misdemeanors, Chum Lee managed to remain out of trouble for the most part until 2019. When they weren't filming, his relationship with Rick was rocky. Although it is true that Rick's imperfect record was recognized by fans, there is more to this tension than what is initially apparent. To begin, Chum Lee began to receive a great deal more attention than he had anticipated. Like a good friend who's always up for hanging out, he's just another ordinary man. Despite the fact that he lacks the requisite expertise, no one could deny his charisma. His genuine friendliness makes everyone want to throw a barbecue for him. Some of his admirers even speculated that Rick's sudden surge in popularity was due to jealousy, but there's more to the story. Things were not helped by Chumlee's penchant for living it up big. He isn't bashful about flaunting his $5 million net worth. Here we are discussing 64 Impalas, Maseratis, and Escalades. This is his life. Jamming out with his crew to his fave tunes. Rick, meantime, is undoubtedly worrying that he's made some bad decisions in life while he tries to keep the pawn store open. For Rick, money is everything. He's keeping an eye out for any unwise decisions that could sink the shop. To put Rick's expression on the face when he learned how much the shop lost due to Chumlee's careless spending, which cost $20,000, you can picture. Yet there are many who hold a more straightforward view. Perhaps they were too busy to meet up after the show. You should check out Rick's barbecue establishment. A Nevadan's choice for finest barbecue goes to Rick's Roll and Smoke. Additionally, he is quite busy with other television projects for Rick Harrison Productions. Chum Lee? He's also quite busy making cameo videos only for his followers. Their hectic schedules made it impossible for them to have those late-night pizza conversations. The pawn shop's reputation isn't exactly stellar when it comes to Chumlee Russell. Every day, Rick and Corey get ready to make another dubious choice. When Chumlee does manage to win, it's always shocking and makes everyone wonder if he's actually a genius or if he's just really lucky. A client came in the door at the crack of dawn with a couple of vintage Black Sabbath LPs, records of a particular kind, though. On the original Vertigo label, you might find these, and one of them even included the ultra-rare poster. Chumlee was captivated from the get-go. The guy let out a dramatic sigh and some negotiating until Chum finally got the recordings for $140. Everyone who knows Rick well knows that he has an innate sense for spotting a fishy deal. With an eyebrow arched, he asked what was happening as Chumlee was finishing off the records. Chum brought in an expert to show that his purchase wasn't a bust. It was a complete shock to everyone, but notably Rick, that the recordings were worth $1,200. When Chumlee finally hit it big, he was glad to let everyone about it. Although Chumlee had more to do. The next to arrive was Spencer, a frequent customer who was armed with a Philippine insurgency knife. It appeared like it had stepped out of a historical novel and had an original label. Evidently feeling fortunate, Chumlee managed to negotiate a price reduction to $600. When Corey walked in, he saw the knife and immediately thought it was a $200 blunder. Things became intriguing at that point. My darling. You should have bet Corey at least $600 on the knife, as is typical of Chumlee. If Chumlee is correct, Corey will be obligated to wear a tutu while walking Pinky, the shop dog. According to Corey, Chumlee's ponytail would be snatched. There was a lot at risk. They hastily handed the knife to a specialist, and the outcome was magnificent. At least in Chumlee's case. Corey was compelled to fulfill his half of the bargain when the knife's historical value was estimated at $1,000. Perhaps the most enjoyable aspect of the day was witnessing Corey's ungainly presentation of Pinky in her ruffled pink tutu. But that wasn't the end of the mayhem. A signed book by Charles Lindbergh cost Chumlee $500, which the older guy found quite disappointing. Chumlee hurried to have the book examined by Rebecca, their resident expert in books, after receiving a harsh warning that making this purchase might result in an unpaid vacation. It appeared risky at first. Some people were curious about the signature because it was shorter than normal. It was genuine, though, as Rebecca clarified. Due to his hectic schedule that year, Lindbergh had to shorten his autograph. The book was worth $1,500 to her. Chumlee was currently experiencing a wild run of good fortune. As a result, he spent the day's last dollar on a classic children's ride. Even though the seller wanted $5,000, Chumlee managed to get the price lowered by some sorcery. Chumlee had a successful day, humiliated Corey in the best way possible, and impressed Rick to a lesser extent by the end of it. Was it competence? Good fortune? Half and half? Being in Chumlee's presence in the gold and silver pawn store guarantees that there will be no dull moments. During their search of Chumlee's residence, the police found a number of disturbing clues and a wealth of unexpected information. An oddity was the famed Chum Room, which included a stripper pole and looked like something out of a rock star's playbook. However, the true storytellers weren't quite as entertaining. From one gun sprang a collection of 12, some of which were loaded and ready to shoot. Even more astonishing is the fact that Austin Russell, whose real name is Chumlee, only had 4 registered. Then there was the haul of drugs and paraphernalia, which the police said had elements that were typical of controlled substance packaging and sales. Of course, rumors of drug peddling started circulating. Chumlee weathered the legal maelstrom by striking a plea deal in May 2016. He admitted guilt on 2 counts, one for attempted drug possession, which was a gross misdemeanor, and the other for felony unauthorized firearm possession, according to USA Today. As part of the agreement, he was sentenced to 3 years of probation and treatment, with the possibility of 2 to 5 years in prison for a first offense. Fortunately, Chum Lee was not charged in the sexual assault inquiry that had originally prompted the search. David Chesnoff, his lawyer, verified that his client had been exonerated from the charges. To avoid jail time, Chum Lee had to turn over all the drugs and weapons that had been confiscated. Fans were relieved to see that Chum Lee will remain on Pawn Stars despite all the controversy. Even though his future with the History Channel was uncertain, his co-stars stood by him. "We don't have all the details yet, but we're here to support Chum Lee however we can," said Rick Harrison, the shop's owner and the show's patriarch, in an interview with Fox 411. Through mysterious social media statements on their friendship and Nevada's loose gun registration rules, Chumlee's longtime pal and fellow cast member demonstrated his allegiance. Clear and understated backing. Since he was a little boy, Chumlee's charisma has come from his image. When he was 12 years old, a friend's dad compared him to the endearing but naive walrus from Tennessee Tuxedo, Chum Lee, and that's how he earned his moniker. In fact, Chum Lee took it as a compliment and went on to joke, "Let's see who this Chum Lee character is," rather than taking offense. The fact that he was a silly sidekick's identity was further cemented by the revelation. However, fame is transient, so Chum Lee acted wisely by broadening his interests. In addition to being the first member of the Pawn Stars to sell branded items, he also attended DJ school and dabbled in music. His inclusion of Girl Scout cookies and hot chicks in one of his early gigs made headlines. The original Chum Lee. Promoting musicians from Las Vegas is another idea he's considered. Assuring that his persona extends beyond his comedic roles and television appearances. His boldness and initiative have paid dividends. From t-shirts to unique souvenirs, Chum Lee's product range is sure to be a success. As a result, Rick Harrison also joined the bandwagon and made an agreement to sell pawn shop merchandise with the Chum Lee logo. A side hustle became a reliable source of income thanks to that cooperation. Corey Harrison and Chum Lee's friendship dates back to their youth. Chum Lee was born and raised in the Corey household, where the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop has been in operation since 1989. Chum Lee had been an employee for 5 years prior to the show's filming. How did he plan to get onto the show? "These guys are old friends of mine. Just like before, I'll be humorous and make jokes with them." He became an overnight sensation on Pawn Stars thanks to the strategy. Things haven't always been light and funny, though. Chum Lee lost her father to pancreatic cancer just 2 weeks before the 2009 premiere of Pawn Stars. In light of the tragedy, Chum Lee declared that the handcrafted goods his father had produced were irreplaceable and that he would never let go of them. His health also got a rude awakening after the catastrophe. Chum Lee lost over 100 pounds by cutting out processed meals and concentrating on fitness after seeing Corey Harrison's weight loss. Even though he had come to believe in moderation by 2014, maintaining a rigid diet was still a challenge for him. He has gained 50 pounds by the year 2016. Gastric sleeve surgery, which involved the removal of 80% of the stomach, was his choice when his weight reached 350 pounds in 2019. The outcomes were striking. Chum Lee appeared hell-bent on maintaining her weight of 190 pounds by October 2021.